Hey everyone, Spicy Toast Gaming here, and it's time for this week's weekly adventures. So we have a 1.5, a 2, and a 4-star adventure. For the 1.5, we have Experimental Design. Round start, each unit with 2 or less power has a 50% chance of being stunned, and a 50% chance of gaining Elusive. Now for this, I would suggest you just use anyone that has units above that 2 power, which is going to be, honestly, almost everyone. And just make sure you have either some consistent removal or some elusives. So you might want to go with someone like Master Yi where you're generating elusives, or maybe throw on a Shade Leaf on your champion so that you can give one of your units or several units that permanent elusive, just so you have blockers for any elusives that the enemy gets. But overall, this is a fairly broad power. You just got to be sure that you can counter the elusives that the enemy makes. So either generate your own elusives, or just throw on a Shade Leaf and you'll be fine. Alright, next up for the 2-star, we have Ocean's Verse. When either player plays a spell, give their weakest ally elusive this round. This seems very powerful. Definitely go for some of those units that have a lot of spammable spells, especially Nami or Master Yi should be very good for this. But some other units that can just generate a cheap spell every round, such as Annie, would also benefit fairly well from this as well. We have the Encumber. The player's units have 1/1 and cost 1 more for each item on them. So this is a very interesting power. I don't think we've ever seen this before. Now for most champions, just about every card in your deck is going to be able to have some items on them. So this might be a situation where you want to go for a champion that isn't actually playing cards that are in their deck, but they're generating cards. Thinking of champions like Poro King, where most of the cards you're playing are these Poros that you're generating that don't necessarily have any items on them. That way you'd be able to get around that sort of barrier. Or you might want to go for some of the decks that have some good cost reduction, such as Samira, where you can get that cost reduction every single round to help you get out some of your units and avoid that extra mana cost. Overall though, I think I'd actually focus on the Ocean's Verse and maybe just go for a pretty strong champion like Nami, where most of your units are already pretty cheap, so if you have to pay a little bit more for them, it's not the end of the world. And then essentially you're just going to have a full board of elusives that you'll be able to absolutely destroy the enemy with. Alright, for the 4-star, we have Blade in the Darkness. This one is pretty rough. So round end, if the player's Nexus took damage this round, the foe's strongest unit strikes it. So you want to make sure the enemy never hits your Nexus, because if they do, then they're going to hit it with their strongest unit. Quite often what the enemy can do is they'll play a very cheap elusive or something like that that's able to just slip by, do like 1 damage to your Nexus, and then they might have a much larger unit that then is able to hit at the end of the round. So really for this, just make sure no one can touch your Nexus. Do whatever you can to always block. Then we have the Iterative Enhancements. Round start, the foe summons the next turret. This is really putting a timer on your game, because once they get high enough, they just start summoning a free 8/8 unit every single round. So you're going to want a unit that is able to end games fairly quickly, and then just have, the normal vicious enemy. So this one will be pretty rough. You're going to want to use one of your really strong champions. Probably just go with the champion you are the most comfortable with. Having some extra CC just to reduce the amount that they can attack you would be pretty decent, or the amount of units that can attack you so you're able to block more, or having some good removal. Like Annie would be probably pretty great for this, because they could take out enemy targets as well as stun them to keep them from attacking. You also might want to go for a champion that really benefits from there being enemies on the board, such as like Kayn or Garen, where you want to continually get your strikes or kills off, but sometimes the enemy runs out of units. So try to take this iterative enhancements to your benefit. Especially for Kayn, you want to be able to kill units, and sometimes the enemy units are too strong, where here for the first couple rounds those turrets will be very weak, and so you can try to benefit from killing those turrets early and then scale up so that your units are strong enough to close out the game or deal with some of those later turrets, including the T-Rex that's 8/8. So as per usual for the last one, play your strongest champion possible, but just be sure you're not letting anyone touch your Nexus. If someone does hit your Nexus, then just try to make sure you're killing every single unit on the board, every single enemy unit, so that they can't actually hit your Nexus at the end of the round. Alright, that's it for these weekly adventures. Pretty interesting ones. Cool that we're seeing some powers we've never seen before. And then we'll also gain a more interesting last weekly adventure. Feels like most of the weekly adventures are the final one. It's just been using like the same powers over and over again. So comment down below what you think of the weekly adventures, and if you thought of any really cool strategies, let your fellow players know down below. I hope you guys have a great day and a great week.